not seeing any options outside of agriculture for themselves, farmers now facing extreme financial distress.
The immensity of India's food problem is baffling and frustrating.
Farmer suicides continue to remain a major issue.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Saturday inaugurated the Global Millets Conference in New Delhi.
UN has declared, remember, 2023 as the International Millets Year.
भारत का मिलेट मिशन देश के 2.5 करोड़ किसानों के लिए वरदान साबित होने जा रहा है.
Millets are one of the oldest foods, providing food and livelihood security to millions of households.
Millets contribute to mitigating climate change as it helps reduce the atmospheric carbon pressure.
Hi everybody, we all know the state of farmers in India. In spite of 60% of the Indian population working in agriculture, in spite of agriculture contributing to 18% of the Indian economy, today our farmers are in such a terrible condition that in 2021 alone, 10,881 farmers committed suicide. That's 29 farmers every single day for the entire year. And we all know the reasons for this condition, right? The yield is going down, climate change is ruining lands, and lastly, the markets have been swinging so bad that most farmers never achieve financial security. And while all of us are worrying about this aspect of our farmers, on the other side, another catastrophe is taking place. Our groundwater levels have reached dangerous levels. The most fertile lands of our country is being ruined due to pesticides and fertilizers. And most importantly, with each passing day, the food that we eat is turning into poison due to excess pesticides and fertilizers. But you know what, guys? This is where an absolutely revolutionary set of crops are coming up. And these crops can not just change the life of the farmers, but even restore the disastrous state of soil in India. These crops that we're talking about are none other than millets. And mind you guys, millets are so special that they are now being called as the super crops of the 21st century. And if you only understand the importance of millets, you'll be able to spot the next big business wave in the agricultural sector of India. So in this episode today, let's do a deep dive and try to understand what is so special about millets that they're now being called as the super crops of the 21st century. How can millets solve the farmers' problems? How can it prevent an environmental disaster in India? And most importantly, what is the government doing to create a market for millets in India? But before we move on, I want to quickly thank our partners Traya for supporting our content. Did you know 52% of the people reporting hair loss mentioned that they were facing some kind of nutritional deficiency according to Traya's data? Hair loss has internal root causes apart from your poor nutrition like immunity, hormones and stress. Beyond this, hair loss occurs in 7 stages. If you are between stage 1 to 4, hair loss can be managed with the help of proper diagnosis and customized treatment. But if you're at stage 5 or beyond, it might be too late for natural treatments and you might be left with options like surgical transplant, which is a very expensive, complicated and risky procedure. So it's important to act early. And this is where Traya comes in. Traya is the first ever hair loss solution company in India that treats hair fall internally by identifying the root cause of hair health problems through their free hair test. They offer a customized holistic approach backed by doctors and 3 sciences of Yajurveda, dermatology and nutrition. The best part is that each patient is assigned a hair coach to guide them through their hair growth journey, ensuring a seamless treatment journey for the customer. I tried it myself and I've seen a lot of improvement. In fact, not just me, over 2.5 lakh Indians have seen results with Traya and they have a success rate of 93%. You can also try it in a 3-step procedure. Number 1, head to traya.health and take the free hair test. Buy your 1-month customized kit and get started with the free diet plans and a hair coach and see results in 5 months. I have left the link in the description and you can check it out and use my code thinkschool20 to get 20% off on your purchase. And now, on with the episode. To understand the importance of millets, we first have to understand the story of the Indian agriculture. This is a story that dates back to 1980s India, and like we saw in the Sikkim episode, during the 1960s, India was facing a massive food shortage, and this is what India looked like back then.
India requested 10 million tons of wheat from the United States to avoid food shortages. But President Lyndon Johnson resented Mrs. Gandhi's opposition to the Vietnam War and was stingy with aid.
At that period, people were actually writing off India.
Borlaug shifted his focus to the hungriest countries on the planet, especially India, where 3 million died from hunger in the 1960s.
And this is when the Green Revolution was initiated in India, whereby we implemented the most efficient and high-yield systems to become self-sufficient with our food supply. And this initiative included importing machinery and farming techniques from abroad, using fertilizers and pesticides, and many other methods to increase our production capacity so that we could feed our people properly. And one such system was the rice-wheat cropping system. For those who don't know, rice-wheat cropping system is a cropping system whereby rice and wheat crops are grown in sequence in the same field. So rice is grown during the monsoon season and wheat is grown during the winter season. And the reason why the system was followed was because it increases the crop productivity, reduces labor costs, and has an insane economic benefit as compared to other systems. And this super efficient system is the reason why we were able to come out of food shortages in India back in the 1960s. And if you look at this graph, because of Green Revolution and the rice-wheat cropping system, we were able to scale up our food production with the explosion of our population for the next 50 freaking years. And today, the rice-wheat cropping system has become the backbone of Indian farming, especially in the northwestern regions of Punjab, Haryana and Uttar Pradesh. And if you look at the scale of this rice-wheat farming in India, you will see that it is done over an area of 9.2 million hectares. This is such a huge area that the state of Punjab itself is only 5.03 million hectares. So it's about 1.8 times the size of Punjab. On top of that, if you look at rice, in India, it's not just a commodity but a staple food for 70% of the Indian population. And the rest of the population consumes rice along with wheat and other grains. So in short, rice and wheat are not just crops but also a critical part of both the economy and the diet of Indians. But you know what, guys? This very same rice-wheat system that became a savior for India in the 1960s, as of today, it has laid the foundation for some very, very dangerous consequences. The question is, if this system took us out of food shortages, if this system is providing such a healthy stream of income for both our farmers and our country, then why the hell is it dangerous? Well, this is what, ladies and gentlemen, brings me to the dark side of the rice-wheat system. And the first reason has to do with groundwater system. Now, if you look at water consumption of rice and wheat, it will blow your mind. If you look at this chart, you will see that while potato requires between 500 to 1500 liters of water per kg, wheat requires between 900 to 2000 liters, soybean requires 1100 to 2000 liters per kg, whereas rice alone requires anywhere between 1900 to 5000 liters of water per kg. So with the rice-wheat farming system, you don't have one but two water guzzling crops on the same field. And what's even worse is that this water that is being used is not coming from a river or from rain, but from the precious groundwater sources. And here's where the problem starts.
We always say that groundwater is actually the lifeline of India. It's not the water that flows over the ground, it's actually the water that flows under the ground that is the lifeline of majority of the country.
Groundwater is also threatened by pollution and mismanagement.
आज पंजाब का पानी जो है वो पीने लायक भी नहीं रहा और सिंचाई के लायक भी नहीं रहा.
By the year 2030, 40% of all of India could have no water in their groundwater and no access to drinking water.
So since we are using large part of groundwater for irrigation, so situation is that groundwater table in the state is declining.
If you look at this graph, back then when Green Revolution started, it was completely okay to use rice-wheat system because 60% of our water needs came from surface water and only 30% came from groundwater. But now, over the last 50 years, this ratio is reversed, whereby today 60% of our requirement comes from groundwater and only 30% comes from surface water. And the result of this is very, very scary. This is the map that actually shows you something called groundwater development percentage as of 2011. Groundwater development percentage is basically the ratio of the annual groundwater extraction to the net annual groundwater availability. So if this ratio is 30%, it means that we are extracting 30% of the available groundwater for our use. Now if you look at this table, it says that if this percentage is less than 70, then it is safe. Between 70 to 90, it is semi-critical. 90 to 100, it is critical, and more than 100%, it is over-exploited. And this is extremely high risk. And you would be shocked to know that this percentage for Andhra Pradesh was 37%, for Tamil Nadu it was 77%, but for Delhi it was 137%, for Haryana it was 133%, for Rajasthan it was 137%, and for Punjab it stood at a very, very dangerous level of 172%. And if you look at the macro view of India, this red color indicates overexploited groundwater zones. And as it is clearly visible, it's not just Punjab and Haryana, but most of our fertile lands are places where groundwater is being overexploited every single year. So do you realize this is the perfect indicator of a nightmare in the making? Now this exploitation of groundwater is primarily because rice and wheat cultivation require a lot of water, and these states particularly cultivate rice. So if this continues until 2050, these states like Punjab, Haryana and Rajasthan might face severe water famines that would kill the livelihood of the farmers, that could ruin the crops and create food shortages all across India. So you see, the irony is that the rice wheat system is creating the very problem it was meant to solve. And this brings me to the second problem, and that is the deterioration of soil health. Now, if you know how rice cultivation is done, you would know that rice is a crop that requires puddling, as in water is flooded onto the rice fields to irrigate the land. And the soil is tilled to create a smooth seed bed for planting. But when intensive tillage is done for both rice and wheat, it further leads to soil erosion, nutrient depletion and loss of soil organic matter. And lastly, the heavy use of fertilizers and pesticides causes soil acidification and nutrient imbalances, which reduce the soil fertility and its productivity.
हम जिस प्रकार से केमिकल का उपयोग कर रहे हैं, केमिकल फर्टिलाइजर का उपयोग कर रहे हैं, पेस्टिसाइड्स का उपयोग कर रहे हैं, हम हमारी इस धरती माँ को तबाह कर रहे हैं.
Pesticides is one of the more controversial topics in all of this. Use of these chemicals not just impact our food chains, but also our health and the environment.
We annually shower over 5 billion pounds of pesticides across the earth, have the potential to pollute soil and water, impact wildlife, and even harm us.
Pesticides are often criticized for their harmful effects. They impact on biodiversity by killing insect pollinators, damaging soil quality, and polluting groundwater.
This is the second problem with the rice-wheat cropping system. And lastly, we have the problem with greenhouse emissions. Long story short, agriculture is responsible for around 16% of India's greenhouse gas emissions. And around 37% of these emissions come from rice alone. These are the problems associated with the rice-wheat system. So our soil is in danger, our groundwater is in danger, our farmers' long-term livelihood is in danger, and most importantly, our country's food security is in danger. So the question is, if this situation is so bad, what is the solution to prevent this disaster? Well, this is why, ladies and gentlemen, our super crops millets have come to our rescue. For those who don't know, this is what millets look like. They are nutritious whole grains that are packed with protein, antioxidants and nutrients. And you might know them by the names of jawar, bajra, ragi, foxtail and little millets. So the question is, what is so special about these crops called millets, and why are they called as the super crops of the 21st century? Well, the first reason why millets are considered so special is because of their water consumption. Like we saw, while wheat requires 90 to 2000 liters of water per kg, rice requires 1900 to 5000 liters per kg, whereas millets barely require 650 to 1200 liters per kg. So it's almost like growing potatoes. In fact, most millets can be grown on low fertility soils and drylands. Pearl millets can be grown on sandy soils. Finger millets can be grown in saline soils. And barnyard millet can even grow in problem soils, as in the soils that may have dryness, wetness, steepness, acidity or even salinity. Fun fact, these crops can tolerate extreme weather conditions like drought and flood, and can even tolerate high temperatures up to 42 degrees. Cherry on the cake, millets even require less rainfall. If you look at this table, while rice needs 1250 mm of water, ragi requires only 350 mm. While rice requires 18 rounds of 1250 mm water, ragi requires only 6 rounds of 350 mm water. And that is a big difference. And even if farmers get less rainfall, while rice farmers will face losses, millet farmers can actually survive with just surface water supply. So to put that straight, if millets are grown, the groundwater can be restored, barren lands across India can be used for its cultivation, and most importantly, these crops are not over-dependent on rainfall. Secondly, while rice and wheat require a ton of pesticides, millets are actually pest-free crops, as in they do not attract pests at all, and even during storage, they do not get affected by storage pests at all. So again, when less pesticides are used, less toxins sink into the soil. This leads to better soil health, and even the groundwater does not get contaminated due to pesticides. And thirdly, while rice cultivation practices ruin the soil health, millet cultivation actually improves the health of the soil. And lastly, millets have a global demand because they are extremely healthy as compared to rice and wheat. And here's where my brother Digvijay Singh will help you understand the nutritional value of millets.
Here are 3 key benefits of millets compared to rice and wheat. Number 1, millets help improve blood sugar control. Millets have a lower glycemic index compared to rice and wheat, which can help improve blood sugar control and reduce the risk of type 2 diabetes. Number 2, millets can help improve digestion. Millets are gluten-free and a great source of dietary fiber, which can help promote healthy digestion, prevent constipation, and promote the growth of beneficial gut bacteria. So you'll have better skin quality and improve nutrient absorption in your gut. Number 3, millets lower the risk of chronic diseases. Millets contain a range of vitamins and minerals such as magnesium, iron, and zinc, which are important for overall health and can help improve the risk of chronic diseases such as heart disease and stroke. And mind you, inflammation is so dangerous that it can contribute to the development of chronic diseases. So the higher the level of inflammation, the greater is the risk of developing chronic diseases. And when it comes to millets, they have 10 times more calcium than wheat and rice, as much protein as wheat, and has as many calories as other grains. And the best part is that it has more nutrients and is easily available in all parts of the country. The cherry on the cake is that millets are so versatile that they can be incorporated in any kind of dishes, such as laddu, upma, roti, poha, and even porridge.
These are the reasons why millets are known as the super crops of the 21st century. So it's not just a super crop for India, but for all across the world. Now the question is, if millets are such an important commodity, both for farmers and for global markets, what is the Indian government doing to embrace this opportunity? Now, if you want to invest or start your business in the millet sector, listen to this very carefully and also refer to the study materials that I give you in the description. Now, as far as the central government is concerned, the procedure is just like any other industry. Subsidies are given to promote these crops. International festivals are organized to bridge the gap between farmers and international buyers. And lastly, education centers are established to create awareness. I will attach all the government-related articles and docs in the description, so please read through them to understand this framework properly. But if you're somebody who wants to go bullish into millets, there is one underrated state that is doing a phenomenal job with millets. And just like UP's one district, one product model is now being implemented all across India, the same thing is happening with this state's millet model. This state that I'm talking about is none other than Odisha.
The Honorable Chief Minister of Odisha, Shri Naveen Patnaik, introduced the program
Odisha Millet Mission.
Mission Millet.
Odisha Millet Mission.
Odisha Millet Mission. Odisha Millets Mission in 2017.
Majorly focuses on improving millets consumption, production and productivity.
Tribal women in the state spearhead the Odisha Millets Mission.
One of the unique programs in the country which has revived millets from farm to plate and has received many accolades from different quarters at the state, national and international level.
And Odisha has done such a phenomenal job with millets that in the past few years, the ragi production in Odisha has increased from 3,116 hectares to 43,993 hectares. That's a 14 times increase in cultivation. And the way they have done it is through 3 concrete steps. The first is incentivizing farmer methods. So after teaching farmers how to use the best farming methods for millet cultivation, they incentivized their practices. For example, if they followed the system of millet intensification, they would be given 5,000 rupees per hectare. And if they follow methods like line snowing and line transplanting, they'll be given 2,500 rupees per hectare for the first year. The second was to make millets market viable for farmers. For this, Odisha has increased the minimum support price of millets from 1,900 rupees to 3,295 rupees. This by default increases the price of millets in the market, which eventually gave better profits for farmers. And when the government procured such huge quantities of millets, they started to use these millets to introduce public welfare schemes. And these schemes include Ragi Laddu in supplementary nutrition programs and even in the midday meal schemes. And lastly, Odisha started to spread awareness within the state and has started to connect farmers to international markets to create demand. And very recently, Odisha shipped its first international consignment to UAE. This is how Odisha is pursuing its millet mission. Now, because this is already information overload, I'll leave the rest of the details of the Odisha mission in the description. So if you're someone who's looking to start or already has a business in millets, these government policies and documents will help you understand the trajectory of your state government to pursue the millet mission. But long story short, you must check which state is incentivizing millets, how is the state creating a demand for millets, and most importantly, how is the state helping you connect with the international markets. And lastly, you also need to check how is your government helping you connect with FMCG companies like Marico, ITC and Parle to help you build a sustainable business. And for reference, please check the Odisha mission link in the study materials. So read through them and let me know what you think. That's all from my side for today, guys. If you learned something valuable, please make sure to hit the like button in order to make YouTube Baba happy. And for more such insightful business and political case studies, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.